Today, it's your birthday. Yesterday was too, and so is tomorrow. Not sure what that means. Let us introduce you to this powerful concept and our community. We're Helena Christina, and our mission is to empower, teach, and to remind women to celebrate themselves. Combined, we have over 35 years as therapists in private practice. It was in the office and in some of our personal relationships that we were hearing about women struggling and not feeling seen or alive during their messy middle life stage.
We come to you not as your therapist, but rather two women in this life stage with you, your friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or uncomfortable topics in a way to empower you, laugh along the way as part of our healing, and find joy in life. What sets us apart? We leave you with gifts each and every episode. These may come in the form of actionable tools or strategies or invitations to be exactly where you are. Now that we're friends, let's go ahead and make this official. We would love to help start your Thursday mornings, so make sure you follow the show wherever you listen and sign up for our free newsletter at yourbirthdaypodcast.com to receive the episode in your inbox weekly.
Friends, welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about something that's been riding shotgun with many of us. Sometimes uninvited, always persistent, worry. Let me ask you something. And I think Christina and I are giggling because we know this is a hell yes. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying a conversation from earlier that day, or imagining the worst case scenario of something that hasn't even happened yet? Yeah, us too. And I think the part we're giggling is that, like, sometimes we'll text each other like, "Oh, crap, I forgot to tell
Right.
you." So that's why we're giggling, because we're like, "Yes, absolutely," and we all
Right.
roll and go back to sleep until we contact each other. But I divert, which is a Christina thing, but she's sprinkling on me, so here we are. But what if I told you that worry? Yes, that thing that keeps us up at night might be holding a gift. Okay, if your mouth just opened up, we got you. That's what we're going to talk about today. The gift of worry. So grab your beverage of choice. Christina's got some good tea going for her. Get all comfy and let's raise the volume. It's a Friday. We're saucy. We're ready. Worry's going to get a good name. Let's do this.
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. The funniest thing was I was just literally like this morning, I was checking our social media, and you know me and my love of memes. And
Yes.
the meme was like, so why is it so much easier to fall asleep on the couch unintentionally than fall asleep in your bed intentionally? And I was like, amen, right?
Totally. Yes.
Like, it totally is. But here's what I would say. Like, friends, this 2 a.m. waking up thing, it happens to all of us. And if you were like Helene and I, and you're in perimenopause, menopause,
Oof.
sister, it is happening to you all the time.
I'm telling you, we could have like a huge membership site of like, is anyone else awake? Like, let's just talk.
Right. I
And
know.
research says you should only be up for about 20 minutes and then try to go back to sleep. So we can have like a 20-minute check-in, wish each other's, put those worries on the shelf. Let's get back to sleep.
Oh my gosh. I have a good friend who he described it best. He was a paralegal that I worked with in Fort Myers. Rich, if you're listening, this is all about you. But he said to me, he goes, "Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night with a committee meeting for one." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, when you have a board meeting in your head and you just can't go back to sleep. And I was like, that's totally what it is.
Absolutely.
Like, I love that.
Yes.
Gift number one dropped,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the best way to explain it. I literally had a board meeting for myself.
And I want to thank you, Rich, because you're validating it. It's not just men waking up at night. It's not just women. Like, there's a thing about us that might be worrying about something and it alarms us. And we're going to talk about what that alarm means and maybe what you need from it and maybe what you can let go from it. So thanks, Rich. You normalized it and validated it for us.
And sometimes it's like dreams that woke us up and we are a bit, even if it was a good dream, but like last night, I'm always the one to be real here. This night, I literally woke up at 3 a.m. because my dream was that a giant crocodile had gotten out of our lake in northern Minnesota and was chasing me up a wall. Like that was my dream. And I was like, okay, I am getting up and I am resetting. So I got up, went to the bathroom, all the things we do. And I came back to bed. And then my mind was like going through like all the times I saw alligators living in Florida and like, what? And then I was like worried, like my stress was rising over alligators and I live in flippin' Minnesota. Like
Right.
that's the thing with worry. Like it doesn't always make sense. Like Inside Out got it right. Like sometimes it's so illogical where your brain takes you.
And I think the thing that, and I'm that visual person, when your brain gives you like an alarm, right? When worry wakes you up, and sometimes we think it's negative, sometimes we're trying to dismiss it, but sometimes it might be telling you something. There's benefits from it. What I often think about is it's a little bit like a snowball, right? You have this idea of worry, and you have a
Mhm.
couple of choices. One, you can put it in the snow and let it roll and roll and roll, and then it gets bigger, and then the what ifs, and then the fear, and then it escalates. But as long as you have gloves on and you're holding the snow, you can hold it for a moment, look at all the different flakes, see what it's
Mhm.
made up of, just acknowledge it and look at it. You don't necessarily have to let it grow and grow and grow. So
Right.
that's what I love about worry. You can have choices of how you want to be with it. And I think that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about.
Oh, 100%. And, I always remind people like it goes back to the beginning of time and every creature has it. It's called survival mode.
Ooh, talk more about that because I think that will, Rich helped tell us a little bit that we all experience it. But now I think you're going to give us like that primitive framework that it's biological. So can you
It
tell us
is.
more
It
about that?
is. So, I mean, it's biological in the fact that it's teaching us to be aware of our surroundings, to be hyper vigilant, like danger is lurking, that kind of thing. Like, don't relax, like, there could be a problem here. So, it's like when you hear a sound in the house late at night and you're alarmed, like, who's in my house? Or you're driving and this car is driving funky, like, you're alarmed, like, I don't want to get hit,
Right.
you know? And those are normal worries.
Those are great examples.
But
Yes.
sometimes our body doesn't know how to differentiate. And if we are constantly living in fight or flight and our cortisol levels are chronically high, our brain always thinks that we are in a war zone. Or if, this is intergenerational too. Like there's a genetic component to this, and we've seen this with genetic expression, and you've heard me talk about that before too. But, if your family was in a war and escaped, or, your grandparent was in a war or whatever, it gets passed on in the genetic expression until we learn how to manage it.
So I'll give a little bit of a personal example. I'm like going to be really like vulnerable here. So if you've listened to us before, my mom got really sick at age 14. So
Hmm.
it was not uncommon that I would have to call an ambulance. And I was
Mm.
fully aware that she would go through periods of being really sick. And then there would be bouts where there was kind of like let's say a remission period. So
Mm.
living in that life and being kind of highly activated to be because I was the oldest child. Also, I think I took that on of being like
Hmm.
acutely aware when I was at home before I went to college of being aware. I now look back and I have apologized to my children. I've made them aware that I'm aware that when they get sick, there is a very hyper alertness within myself
Mm.
going back of kind of living in that little bit like fight or flight. Like, is she really okay? Is this the time to go to the ambulance? Do you need anything? So I was always very hyper alert when my kids were sick. So it didn't help my son that he had like 7 surgeries on his ears,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
right. That I always have this like hyper alertness. But as I've gotten older and I've been able like to work on that and to come back to the here and now, that it's not the same situation from what my mom had, but that
Mhm.
same internal alarm comes on. So that's a little bit, I think, what you're talking about to give a little bit of an
Absolutely.
example. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, if you had not done your work and you had not had the conversations you had with your kids, they might be hyper vigilant with you or with their kids or things like that. Like it can keep going on. I think absolutely. I think we've seen it too, like those who have relatives that lived through the Great Depression, which now that generation is passing away because of their age. And so, you'll see and you hear all the time, like everybody giggling that, grandma had 50 boxes of rice in her basement or things like that. But that came out of that trauma that put them in, you know, a rationing fear and a hoarding fear because they knew what it was like to not be able to get rice for a very long time, or whatever it was that they kept, hiding money and not putting it in the bank, things like that, that we all kind of giggle over, but it was a fear reaction and a worry reaction because they had experienced that. So sometimes worry has a logical path,
Mhm.
but most of the time it has an illogical path. And it's literally like a toddler who got a crayon for the first time on a piece of paper. Like it makes no sense. And we're trying to correlate it and we can't always figure it out.
And I want to give another plug in. If you remember, Christina has sprinkled in this incredible gift to us many times that when that sense of worry comes in, you can go back to regulating it by getting in touch with your five senses. In
Hmm.
our past episodes, she has gone through that beautifully for us in reminding you how to come back to the present. So when that alarm comes up or that worry, and you do that gift that she has given us, it can make you more aware of the present. So, like in my
Hmm.
situation, I can remind myself I'm here now. I'm not back in my home when my mom was really sick, or in the situation she just gave us now, I'm not in the depression. I might have heard about it or saw it from like my grandparents, but I'm here now. So that would be a great thing that you can go back and,
Right.
unwrap that gift that she's given us before to help you if you find that so you don't like make that snowball when you don't need to.
Absolutely. And I think, the job of worry is to be aware of our surroundings, to constantly look for and analyze around us to keep us safe. Like at its core, worry is intended to be a gift towards survival.
Yes.
That's the intention of it. And so within that, I think we have two different kinds of worry. We have the productive worry that helps us plan ahead, helps us stay on top of things, helps us get things done. I tell kids all the time, like, having a little bit of worry walking into a test is good because it makes you aware and think through and like really listen to the test and like
Yes.
read the materials because you're more hyper vigilant in a little bit of way.
Right. You're not watching this. Christina's just doing her hands a little bit. Just picture a
Yeah.
little bit.
And
Now
if
she's
you have a
pointing.
big one, like essentially, a yardstick of worry versus a half an inch of worry, if you've got that yardstick of worry, it's paralyzing and it's unproductive. And that's when people go into a test and like literally mind blanks.
Right. So, and I love that because when that's a great gift that like our parents or teachers can teach students. So I remember when my son was walking into, he was going to be taking the MCAT. And once you go in, it is like, you're like pat down, they check everything. And you can walk out of it. And he allowed me to like just sprinkle a little bit of suggestions while still honoring that, obviously he's a young adult. I said, take that moment before you walk back in if you do take a break so that the overwhelm of that worry isn't so big that you can connect with the test. Like it's again,
Yeah.
you're reminding people, let it be productive, but not overwhelming so you can stay connected within yourself.
Yeah. I remember the first time I took the EPPP, which is the national exam for psychology. I literally had built up in my head so much worry, thankful to negative self talk of like,
Mhm.
you can't do this, you're smart, not smart enough, you're not a good test taker. Like, I had said all that shit to myself. And I walked in, I was literally 20 questions in, and I thought for sure I was going to throw up. And I walked out, I went to the bathroom, and I did. And I got so sick because I had worked into my head that I wasn't good enough. And, I've shared this. When I took it the first time, I missed it by one question because that anxiety was the yardstick anxiety, not the half an inch. And so, like, literally, when I studied for it the next time, it was all about working on anxiety and building my confidence. It wasn't about my knowledge or skills, but I had to go into that test with confidence and like get it right.
Right. You kicked ass on the content. You had to work on the process of it, it sounds like.
Yeah, because my worry of failing, I had told myself I was going to fail. And essentially I did because that's what I put into my head. Because the worry had gotten so big, it had become the snowball, as you said,
So I think
versus,
that's what you're telling people they can have a relationship with it.
yeah. And you've got to own it. And you've got to realize if you're a warrior, if you're constantly expecting the worst, you've got to get to yourself and figure out what is that about? Like, why do I keep doing this? And, what is it in me that is fearful? Similar to what Helene did when she realized like she was way overreacting when her kids just had a normal kid illness. And so she had to really reflect and go, oh, sending mom to the hospital so many times makes sense. Like, no wonder my brain would go there because I have had that experience with my own mother, and my mother had a chronic illness. My
Right.
children do not. And you were able to separate that in your brain and put mom in a separate category of your children.
It took a long time. So I think that's the gift I want to give you guys. Like, learn from me. And, I think the first year of college, like, my son would be like, I'm not even, I don't know if I can even tell you if I have a cold. And it was also COVID at that point. Like, I mean, not that COVID's gone now, but it was more heightened, right, at that
Right.
point. And, as they got older, and I'd be like, oh, like, do you have a cold? Like, I would be high vigilant. They'd be like, Mom. And they really gifted me the opportunity to make me aware to look at, kind of bumping into some of my own stuff, like Christina said, what's underneath that. And for me, it was really heightened fear, but it wasn't rational. Again, like you said, kid stuff, not mine stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think the thing is, if you continue to ignore it and pretend like it doesn't exist and try to mask it or cover it up, you're creating that snowball. You're just growing it.
Can you think of an example of how they would cover it up?
Pretending like everything's fine,
Uh,
acting like, no, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And in the meantime, like they're running to the bathroom 50 times because they've got stomach issues over it, or they're chewing their nails off, or they aren't getting things done. Like, people, we often see it too with like finances that they're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And they're so worried, they're helpless, and they just like are not paying their bills because they're so scared of their bills.
so they get frozen in the behaviors that they end up avoiding rather than having
Yeah.
some exposure to the worry. That's where I think I love that visualization that Christina gave. You could have an intra worry just a little bit for a little bit of time. You don't have to go in for a
Mhm.
yardstick.
Right. Right. And here's what I always tell my patients: the quicker you deal with it, the smaller it stays. The longer you worry about it, the more it grows. So I can tell you, like, when I get really like anxious about something and then I finally face it and deal with it, I'm like, that was not so bad. Like, what the hell, Christina?
Right.
And then I like add up in my head, like how much time I spent worrying versus how much time I spent doing it. And I'm like, son of a gun. Like, I literally took me a half hour to do, and I probably spent 6 hours in total worrying about it. Like,
Right.
what a waste of time in life.
You get back your life again. And I think
Yes.
sometimes that's where the snowball, because then it's like, well, what if I do that? And what could happen? And we go to a worst case scenario. And how is the other person going to react? Or like, what if I don't do well? It's all the what ifs versus if you
Mhm.
just do it, it can really dismantle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I remember when we were doing the build out with therapy suites, like the builder had asked me, like, I don't know, like it was probably under 10 questions. And one question I was stumped on, and the other like 9 I could answer like this, like so
Right.
quick.
Mm-hmm.
And like over a week, I didn't respond. And finally, he's like, Christina, we're pausing your build till we hear from you. And I was like, oh shit. Like, and I don't know why, because then I sat down and
Right.
then I went back to the building plans and like instantly found the answer. And I was like, oh, it's on this page, da 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 da.
Mhm.
And and then I was like, holy Toledo, like you almost paused your build because you couldn't answer some questions. And it would have been okay to even write back and be like, hey, Mike, I don't know. I
Yes.
don't know where that is. Can you look at the building plans with me? Like, and he probably would have found it way faster than even I did and
Right.
didn't even realize it was in there. Like, it was something so simple. And so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about, friend, is like, if you don't address your worry, if you don't say to it, Mother, may I, and talk it out in your head,
Right.
you turn it into catastrophic when it doesn't need to be.
Because I love what you said about like that game, if you played Mother May I, it's all about listening. It's about
Mhm.
asking and listening.
Yeah.
If you remember playing Mother May I, da 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 da, Susie Q, can I take 3 steps? Mother May I? And then you can take 3 steps. So if I just like take a moment, like Christina said, and ask a question or even just listen, right? So the listening might have been potentially, I don't know, like this question from Mike and I'm not initially knowing the answer and about the bill, like there could be something underneath it. So if I sit with it for a moment and I get curious, then I might be like, oh, I can identify it. I can also do something with it, like ask, like you said, Mike, hey, I'm not
Mhm.
really sure. Can you go through this with me? So Mother May I is asking the questions and then listening to what you need. I love that you gave that.
Right. And it's usually linking to something that like you really, really care about, like that you're really passionate about, that really matters to you. Like for me, like that test was the final checkbox of being able to do the career that I had dreamed of and gone to school for many years and like done tons of hours of training on and all of that. Like, of course, it was huge to me. The build out was huge to me. Like, it was my dream coming true. Like, all of these things are enormous. And yet, we literally get paralyzed in the actions of them. And so I think, what you need to say is, what is this worry trying to protect me from? Like, what is it trying to tell me? Sit
Right.
with
It
it.
it's hard to me. I always tell people in the office, like, let's say it's worry or anxiety. If we pulled up a chair, right? Because a lot of times we want to run away. Christina and I are all about leaning in. If I just pulled up a chair and I said, okay, worry, you're knocking. I want to avoid. You're knocking harder. I might as well give you a seat at my table. What is it that you're trying to tell me? Give it a voice. It will tell you. You just have
Hmm.
to hold the space for it and just listen.
Yeah. Helene, can you share the iceberg concept that you love to share with clients
So
about
the
this exact thing?
Yeah, the iceberg effect can work with like worry or even with anger or even like something within a relationship. So if you think of like an iceberg, right? So there's the water. If you're on YouTube, you're seeing this, but if not, just picture like putting the water and you see the ice on top, but you don't see the ice underneath. Okay, but we kind of assume it's there, right? Because you see the ice on top of the water, you don't see the ice underneath, but you know it's there. So it's kind of like Christina said, it's feelings of worry is what keeps coming up. That's what's visible. That's the top of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
What's underneath? Fear of disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
confusion about not knowing the answer,
Mm-hmm.
worry that I will be seen disingenuous. Like, see what's underneath the worry. So, a question you can
Mm-hmm.
always ask yourself, if it wasn't worry, then what may it be? So,
Right.
if not worry, what may it be? And that's typically what's underneath. It's kind of like anger. I think a lot of times anger, anger also gets a bad rap. We should probably do one about like the gift
We
of anger.
should.
To do the gift of anger because anger is a really powerful thing. Although I understand and I honor why we are very scared of it. It can be very scary, but sometimes it's what's underneath the anger, the hurt, the vulnerability, the betrayal,
The
the
fear.
confusion, the fear, right? So you could do it with anger, you could do it with worry. So if not worry, then what? Worry's on top of the ice. What's underneath it? Explore what that is. And what it can be is that gift that Christina gave you, something incredibly important, something that you're passionate about. For Christina, it was this test. It was her dream. It was her commitment, her investment, her time, her study, her finances, the vision of her dream of being an amazing psychologist. It was really important. When I froze the first time on the mic, because I was really excited about this, I'm proud of it, but I was so worried about what it would look like. And then also my responsibility to Christina and all those things that we've worked through. I had to see what was underneath it and then take the pause. And when you get in connection, her being a psychologist, me living out this dream and hopefully giving you guys something with someone else who's incredible to you, Christina, then I was able to do it. She kicked it and she did great on the test and she allowed me 24 hours to get back on the mic. So when you get in connection with that, you can celebrate it.
100%. It is, and we go back to this, like worry can be a gift because it's teaching you something. Like every one of these episodes is all about teaching us about our minds, about our bodies, and how to be the best version of ourselves. And like we say, if you were there and you've got worry under control, hallelujah to you. If you were like Helene and I, and you are still learning this process, and here, Helene's been in practice over 20 years, I've been in practice almost 20 years, like, we get it. We're human too. And I often will say that to patients, like, you do realize I'm human, right?
Yeah.
And then it like eases that angst of like, oh gosh, am I like that much of a screw up? And I'm like, no, you're human. I do that with parents too. I'm like, hey, I'm a real parent.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yep.
You're relatable.
I can preach it, but I don't have it all together either. So, yes. And I think when we are able to sit with our worry, work through the iceberg, and understand what's lying underneath the water, then we get really the hidden gifts that are also kind of underlying the water and want to bubble to the surface. And that is first the gift of self-awareness. Like you get to learn about yourself, what things are fearful to you, and what things are, things that you can overcome and do. You also get to understand where it came from and why it matters to you. Like what is it that's part of your morals, your values, your purpose that is affected by this and is feeling vulnerable or in jeopardy? And sometimes you learn of like values or things that matter to you that you didn't even realize.
Which those are a gift.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I think another gift that you could get is motivation, right? So this is where we're talking about productive worry being a little bit like a nudge. It's a little voice, right? A little voice on the shoulder that's like, hey, it might be time to really start prepping for that presentation that you have next week. Like, it's just a little nudge or like, hey, I know life's been busy. You've had to take the kids to the orthodontist. I know the doctor went to the vet. It's time to schedule your mammogram. It's hopefully just that little nudge of reminding you you're important, you're of value. I'll work with you to get this done.
100%. And we learn compassion. And the greatest gift is compassion for yourself. I think it's much easier as humans to give compassion to others, but it's really hard to give compassion to ourselves.
Yet imagine if we did, the trickle effect it would have with others.
Right.
But that powerful thing you just said. Say that again. I need to hear that again.
I know. And like, if you aren't aware, Helene kind of had a crazy busy week with a lot going on. And like, she's been really critical on herself because some of the responsibilities that she was planning to do, I did. And I'm here to say, like, there are plenty of weeks where that, and probably more often than not, that's a role reversal. Like, I'm the one who's got too much on my plate, too much going on, and needing Helene to come and intervene. And so I've heard it in her text. Like, she's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I'm like, sister, just stop. Like, we even out. And honestly, I think you do more. So, we're experiencing worry in ourselves. And when we can learn that self compassion and give ourselves the same compassion and kindness and love that we would show someone else, we have grown and had an incredible self awareness. Like, I think those kind of go hand in hand. When we can give ourselves that compassion, we also gain self awareness.
I love that. I'm just smiling because, like, I had the pleasure of sitting across from Christina, even though it's on Zoom where you guys are, and just hearing her give that. It just, yeah, take that in and hear that when you can give it
Right.
to people, but give it to yourself also. Yeah.
And then I think when you have learned how to give yourself compassion, you actually are able to give the world more compassion.
Because if it feels good in you, just like that gift she gave me, and I'm connecting with it, then you want to sprinkle it out.
Yeah, you find yourself more patient, more understanding, and also okay with being more human. Like, you find yourself okay with making mistakes. You find yourself okay with realizing that you can be human and not be perfect. I think it goes back to our episode with Maggie and how, she talks about a big thing that she learned through childbirth and then through menopause was self compassion.
Yes.
And so I think that's exactly it. When worrying, worrying gives us clarity, gives us kindness, gives us motivation to get whatever shit we need to get done that we're avoiding,
Yep.
and then be compassionate with ourselves.
Lots of gifts.
Yes.
I like recording these on Friday because we give lots of gifts. I mean, you guys don't hear it till Thursday, but we're doing it on a Friday. So for us,
Yes.
we're jamming it out and like giving
Um,
like good gifts for the weekend. So let's live in, okay, some more tools. So maybe some things that we can leave you with, right? Because we always like
we love gifts.
presents. I know, which is so funny because I have the 5 love languages. Like that's my number 5.
That's my number one. That's my number one.
Quality time.
Really?
Time. Yes. That's so
Wow.
interesting. Oh, we just had a
I
good combo.
no, I'm gifts and acts of service. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now you know a lot about the difference between Helene and Christina.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we put it in a new light, right? We're saying worry can be a friend. We can invite it to have a seat at your table. All right, you're gonna sprinkle some tools to them. I love it. Go ahead, go for it.
No, I think, we have to learn how to reframe our worry. And that's what Helene and I have always talked about is that when we say worry is a gift, we are teaching you how to reframe it. And reframe it means put it in a different perspective versus a negative perspective into a positive perspective. And I think we learn the concept of mindfulness. And if you aren't familiar with mindfulness, it is awesome. And that's saying, hey, I'm worrying right now. What's this about? It's just noticing where your mind is and
Mhm.
asking a thoughtful question.
Oh, I love that. You
It,
made it very simple and yet really powerful.
yeah.
So say that again. If they're worrying, what's a quick mindful thing they can do?
So I would say, noticing that you're worrying, I'm worrying right now. What is this about? Like, just why?
It's another way of being actively aware and then leaning
Mhm.
into curiosity.
And then in that moment, you literally are at a crossroad, right? Where you can either go snowball effect, let's go down this rabbit hole and create it huge, or dude, I'm fine. For Helene, my kid's fine. Common cold. They'll be okay in 2 days.
Yes.
Like, people don't go in an ambulance to the hospital with a common cold. I'm okay.
And that's the gift that Christina gave us. You come back to your present self
Hmm.
in a way. It brings you back to now.
Yes. And I think asking yourself, like, does the worry help me or hurt me? And, the other thing I love to say is, what about in this moment do I have power over and what don't I have power? And if you don't have power, friends, you got to let it go because you can't change the world. And I think that's so huge right now in the political climate, no matter where you sit. But I think we all are worried and scared and uncertain. And so when we can sit back and go, is this helping me or hurting me? And how do I trust myself and let go of things that are outside of my control?
And the thing with that is that what you're saying to people is let go of the things that you're holding on to. And in reality, you're really not holding on to anything.
No, they've never been in your hold in the first place.
Right. The only thing we have control over, the only thing we really have a hold on, hopefully, is ourselves. And if you're not sure about having a hold on yourselves, that's why we're here for you to give you it's your birthday life. Yeah.
Yeah. To take back your life so that you can enjoy and live life full of joy.
Your word for the year.
I know. I love that word. Oh my gosh. Friends, worry can be really hard. It can, take away your peace. It can take away your joy. But often the goal is to reveal something to you, to give you a gift of understanding maybe your passions, your loves, your morals, your values. And when we can stop fighting it, ask it questions and listen to it, several times we unlock gifts of life and we're able to let go of things that we don't need to worry about or think about, or we're able to be motivated and move forward with the things that we need to get done. So, friends, we hope this episode was filled with gifts for you and that you're sprinkled with joy and peace and realizing that you have the tools to deal with worry and also know that it's normal. Like, nobody lives a life without any worries. Nobody. Nobody. And so, if you found this episode helpful, share it as soon as we're done. And we would be so grateful, as always, if you would leave us a positive review wherever you listen to us. And know that exciting things are coming up. And it's your birthday. And so join our newsletter at yourbirthdaypodcast.com. Hang with us on social media. And don't forget your Monday gifts from the couch. Till next week, friends, happy birthday.